think of a person, of you, of me, as many different facets of individual, of having all of these different elements, all of these different pieces of you, but it's all still you. And how do we appeal and give you action steps in every aspect of your life? And so now I want to draw it out, because up until now I've been talking about my world, and that little dot is where I'm from. And when I was 18, my world expanded. It went from something very, very local to something where I was now starting to work all across the globe on these issues. And I began to travel, not to preach about environmentalism, but to go to places with a specific purpose. I first went to Haiti after the earthquake, and I worked in disaster relief and launched an education project there. And I believe that education is the most powerful tool we have. Mandela said, it's this weapon to change the world. But it was all about eco-sustainable school supplies, to plant those seeds of stewardship young. And then during college, I studied abroad, and this is in West Africa. This is in Ghana. And they have a problem with these plastic water sachets. And there was a company that was collecting them and washing them and stitching them together into new market totes that they were selling. And so I launched a recycling program in schools, because these students had never before thought about what they did with the bag after they drank the water. So making those wheels start to turn. And then in the Middle East, worked on peace building around shared natural resources to bring together Israeli, Palestinian, and Jordanian youth. But for a while, I struggled with this idea, of environmentalism. How can I tell people what food to eat, what water to drink, what to put in their homes or their classrooms, when people don't have food, water, shelter, or access to education? And going around the world, and that was just a few examples, but speaking with young people like yourselves, realizing that issues of conservation, of resource degradation, of food, of health, of waste, know no boundaries of geography, of socioeconomic status, of race, of class, of religion. And so I began to really own this role as an activist, as a place where I could be that catalyst. And I came back to my country after living abroad for a couple of years, came back to the United States, and got really involved in racial justice issues here in our country. And this idea that now it wasn't a world away. It was in my backyard. This is in New York City. I went to New York University. And Martin Luther King has this amazing quote that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And the need for people to stand up if we want to make a difference. Then about a little less than a year ago, I was reading the news, and probably like many of you saw an image come in. An image of a 3-year-old boy dead in Turkey, washed up ashore. And I thought to myself, if this really is the largest issue plaguing humanity, why is more not being done? And I went to Lesbos, I went to Greece, and I started working with Syrian, Iraqi, and Afghan refugees that were coming, that were fleeing the terror that we are so afraid will come to our shores. And I came back, and I went back to Lesbos, and I brought a crew, and I went on CNN and talked about it. I brought a videographer, and I went back, and I brought a volunteer, and I went back, and people said, Erin, Erin, are you going to just keep going back? And I said, no. That's my knee-jerk reaction. When I see injustice, I feel compelled to go there, to do what I can. And I have a platform where I feel I can shed light on the issues that matter, to raise awareness, resources, manpower. But if we want lasting systemic change, we need policy shifts. And in March of this year, just a few months ago, I was giving a speech in my hometown in Marin County about the impact of place, about the impact of where I'm from on my upbringing, on my values, on my identity, on my career. And also as a catalyst for so much good, when you think about what comes out of the Bay Area, all of the thinking, the inventions, the really revolutions that start small in my backyard. I walked off stage and people said, "How do we get you to run for office?" And I laughed. I said, I don't fit the mold of politician. I am not what I think of as a politician. And people said, that is exactly why we need you to run. And I had about a week and a half until the filing deadline, and called up a lot of people that were smarter than myself. And they said, do it. We need that voice. So in late March, I filed to run for United States Congress here. This is across the world, right? But here, on this premise, just because I cannot do everything does not mean I will not do something. And it's so paralyzing in our world today, where literally it feels like every day there's a tragedy. Every day there's a new problem, a new issue that we can take on. But I refuse to give that shrug of inevitability. I refuse to say someone else is taking care of it. I choose to step up, to go there, and hopefully impact my community, my circle, but let that again radiate outwards. And so this was the first image that I put up. I wrote an open letter to the world about why on earth a then 24, now 25-year-old woman would want to run for Congress, given, especially here in the United States, the political climate in my country. And I laid out a very simple hypothesis that if the decisions being made today will disproportionately affect us, you and me, we deserve a place at that decision-making table. And it resonated so deeply with the world. The outpouring of support. Our first, let me see what I have here. So I started speaking there in our district, going up and down the coast. And the first video that we put out received 6.5 million views. Now, I am not about clicks, but that's resonance. And people started writing to us about what it meant to see someone who looked like them, who talked like them, who remotely understood what it was like to be them running. And I got to amplify this message around being a member of our generation. Don't vote for someone because they are young, but I believe that we are uniquely equipped to lead the present and the future of the state. Who better understands it than those of us that are building it? And I was also cognizant of what it meant to launch a campaign 70 days before a primary election. So we lay out very specific metrics for success around redefining civic engagement, around reinvigorating a culture of public service, and expanding the definition of who can be a politician when too many of us are being ignored, excluded, disenfranchised, discriminated against. We have to step up. We have to get involved. And if, that's my plea to all of you, is to go there and to remember this is who I was running for. Right? I mean, in a way, we're old news, guys. But it's for the next generation. And the brunt of the impact of the degradation that we are causing now, and my focus has and always will be around climate, around public health, around soil agriculture, around food access, these fundamental problems, challenges that we're facing today, these guys are the ones that are going to pay the price more. So how do we not only mitigate risk, but actually try to shift the paradigm, try to create a better world for the present and for the future? So when you think about everything that's possible, right? It's a lot of things. And then everything maybe that's within your realm of thinking, and everything you overthink, and everything you put off and you procrastinate and you avoid, when you get down to what you actually do, it's just this tiny little speck. Apathy, inaction, is the largest problem facing our world today. So I want you to find that passion. And for me, I found it very young. I found it at age 13 around the environment. I've carried that through environmental education, social justice. But I'm a citizen activist, and I'm not going to be easily silenced. And our ideas, your ideas, are worth acting upon, but no one's going to do it if you don't do it. So I urge all of you, like I urge myself, to remember that action is far too rare in our world today. Find what lights your fire. Find something that you can do in your own backyard, because only once you have done it can it be replicated. Can it be scaled? Can you have maybe that larger local, national, or global impact that you so desire? But it starts with one, to take passion into action. Thank you very much.
That is a very inspiring presentation. So we're going to move on to question and answer. We have live audience here in Jakarta and also in Lincoln Center in Sarawak, Malaysia. We're going to go to in Jakarta, audience here in Jakarta first. Do we have any questions here to Erin about how to start, how do something? It's just not about, like, you cannot do everything like Erin said, but you can do something, and finding something that you can do in your own backyard. Do something little, because like from something little, maybe it becomes something big, like what Erin does with running for Congress and everything. So do we have any questions here in audience in Jakarta? Anything about, do you think about, like, you have a lot of things that you want to change in this community, but it's just about in your mind, how you elaborate that and then put that into action. Do you have any that kind of questions? Anyone? Questions? Yes, we have one question over here. Wait a minute.
Okay, good evening. My name is Rizky. I'm from Bogor Agricultural University, and I'm joined with the Asian Reusable Bag campaign to invite people reducing plastic bag in Asian. I really appreciate your Asian in environment and social responsibility, and I believe
Go together. Remember those words: collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. I cannot stress it enough, you guys, the importance of teamwork, that bringing together people, inviting people to come together, diverse stakeholders, without necessarily expectations, is a very, very good way to start. When we started that school lunch program, for example, the Conscious Kitchen, we brought together over 500 local community stakeholders to share about what we were doing and to glean their insight and to see what they were doing and how they could best plug in. So then suddenly we had this much larger network right off the bat, people that not only knew about what we were doing, but could bring their own assets and strengths to the table. People will doubt you because you are young. People will doubt you for any number of reasons, but let's just leave it at that for a moment. It's that much more important that you have sound backing, whether that be science or media or policy. And so reach out to those people. Our campaign started with a lot of blind emails and blind calls. And I think what you will realize, and this won't last forever, so take advantage of it while you can, is that people will respond. That a younger voice is different. That a younger voice is refreshing. And that they will want to help you. People are inherently good. And so I think, to start off, you get the community support or awareness, and then you can get some experts that you can pull in. And then it's about getting down to work. It's about actually doing it. You have this idea, put it into action. And what I have found is that leading by example, that showing people what can be done, is most effective. Vision is the art of seeing things invisible. So you might have that vision, you might have that idea, and you're focused on environmental issues too. Man after my own heart, plastics and whatnot. So if you lead, people are watching. People are taking note. And I saw that again and again, especially in a place like a college campus, where we grew so rapidly because it's small. It's a little nucleus. And so you start building a movement and people see it popping up and they go, what's that? Well, I want to be a part of that. I want to get involved. And so just remembering to be very inclusive, to be very open, but to lead by example. And you have that very natural osmosis, which will occur, which is really exciting. But it's hard. It's really hard. I mean, I highly, highly recommend, if you do have a very specific idea, to have a co-founder, to do it together. I co-founded the organization with my mom. She's my best friend. But they're going to be late nights. They're going to be sleepless nights. There are going to be a lot of moments when you'll doubt yourself. So to have that really, really close team, and whether that's an executive team or a co-founder, is really important.
Questions? Maybe you want to share what has been in your mind doing something small to change, to make a change in your community, because I believe every student has that phase like, I want to do something, but how to do it? Like, I want to change that, but the community doesn't really care about that. And if I do it like what Erin said, if you do it alone, and then sometimes you will question yourself. And then, do you have this kind of experience? Do you have this kind of challenges that you want to change? Like our friends here, he came from the ASEAN Reusable Bag campaign. That's the campaign in Indonesia and also in ASEAN to reduce the using of plastic bag. And then one of the success story from the community is now we're also joining by the ministry here in Indonesia. So everyone who pays, who buys something and then use the plastic bag needs to buy the plastic bag. That kind of achievement takes process. So maybe some of you have some ideas that you have in mind, but are afraid to elaborate and put that into action. And you have some questions to ask, because we have Erin here. She's been doing that like from her college, from going from campus to campus and then going around the world. And then now she wants to give back to the community. Do you have any more questions here in Jakarta?
It can be very simple too. I mean, if there's a piece,
so we're going to move to Sarawak. in Lincoln Center in Sarawak. Do you have any questions?
Hi, Erin. Maybe you want to finish what you were saying first?
Oh, I was just saying, it can be anything. It can be a very simple, straightforward question or an idea. I'm all ears. Go ahead. Thank you.
I think we just want to thank you for sharing experiences with us. So as you can see, we have a very humble setup here in Sarawak. And I think sharing experiences were very, very important because especially for younger people, sometimes we feel like we don't know what we want to do, and we do know that there's something to be done that we can do. But where do we start, right? We've already had one question from the audience so far, which I'll share with you. If we have more, I'll convey to you. But basically, this gentleman behind me, you said that you maybe Elias. Nice. Okay.
Hi.
So you said that you ran for Congress. You'd like to know that has this experience, made you stronger, or what do you learn from it?
Yeah, great question. It's been the best experience of my life. It's nothing that I ever imagined myself doing, right? I'm an activist, I'm an educator, I'm not a politician. But what I realized is that the most talented and capable individuals I know of our generation, and I'm going to give you guys all the benefit of the doubt and say you're in that group, you're in that bracket of amazing, dynamic, aware, conscious young people. The most talented people I know. Activism, nonprofits, using it in ways we haven't before seen. Media, taking these tools of social media, traditional media, to new heights. Business, shifting the world through startup culture or through changing large corporations. Where's that same innovative thinking? In government, right now. So we need to infuse ourselves in that process. It was absolutely exhausting. Entirely exhilarating. I never felt like I was doing anything more relevant, because now I wasn't just getting to inspire and educate and mobilize people. We were talking about real solutions. I was coming into rooms very much like this, in small towns, up and down the district, saying, hey, what challenges are you facing? How can we address those together? And I really wanted to add value to society through the activist campaign, right? I told you it's 70 days. So that meant talking about the issues that matter to me, to get other people to talk about them, to get the other elected officials to talk about them, to get the media to talk about them. So when, Glamour magazine is writing about soil, about dirt, when the Today Show is talking about apps that we have for political engagement on our phone, when the incumbent, the man who held the office, writes a newsletter about gender rights and women, you start to see the impact that one person can have just through running a campaign. I'll tell you guys, because I'm sure some of you are wondering. So we came up 6.6 points short of advancing in the primary, which was about a month ago. That is so much better than I ever imagined we would do. That is so much better than anyone imagined we would do. I'm so proud and excited to see what we've activated. So I think we did really shift what it means around who can be a politician. Our country is, like most of the world, 51% female, 35% under age 30. There's never been a woman under 30 elected to federal office in the United States of America. There is no one under 30 serving in federal office right now. And so that's got to change. And I think there are a lot of people now that see that as a viable path, that are taking that action. So it's a wild journey, and then certainly one that's just starting.
Okay, Sarawak, Lincoln Center, do you have any other questions?
That's all from us right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, Erin, we have a couple questions online. So
Great.
I will, one of them, the question is from Dana Rose. She asks, what if you are just an ordinary young person, not part of an organization or have not yet established an organization and want to make a difference in our community? How do we start?
It's a great question. So thank you for watching online. Thank you for asking. It's hard. It can be very challenging and very daunting to mount any sort of campaign as a lone warrior. But we were all there. We all started somewhere. Not so glamorous, not so small. I'm just an ordinary person sitting here in an ordinary place, but with an idea. And I think what's shifted so dramatically today is the power of digital media to take what you might be thinking and feeling at home, in your bed, alone, maybe not even wanting to talk about because of a number of reasons, but lack of family support or friend support or because of where you live or you feel alone. Let me tell you something. I guarantee you that there is another and probably many more people thinking and feeling similarly around the world. And we have this tool. The reason that you're asking me this question, the reason that I'm able to communicate with you is because of the internet. So you can put out ideas. You can test them out without much investment, right? Prior, you really had to make a commitment to disseminate the messages and try to talk to people and see if there was support and see if you could build. Now, the click of a button. So you can launch campaigns or try to activate your friends via Facebook. You can see what other people are doing on the same issue with the Google search. You can keep on communicating real time with all sorts of digital platforms. You can share imagery, you can do polls, you can get research. So I think, again, it goes back to this idea of starting. What is the issue that you want to address? What is the problem that you want to solve? That's the question that you ask yourself. And you stay true to that, no matter what. Remember, guys, purpose, not position. Whether you are an ordinary student in a small village or whether you are president of your country, you have to remain on that track towards the purpose that you set out. And if that's clear in your head, you will. I have no doubt. So to all of you online and to you in this room, find the problem. Find what it is that you're going to address, because then you have a goal. And you won't stray so far. And you'll go forward and you'll pull together the people you need along the way. But use your local community to test things and use the digital universe to get that support or research or amplification that you need.
Okay, thank you, Erin. That's actually also the question from Carol. She's asking, like, with the digital media era, like we're in now, like, where do we start? Is it like where do we start? Is it like your local community first or the online and finding people who has the same interests with you out in the digital world? But you also already mentioned.
Well, I think it's really, it's a balance, right? Let me tell you something. Clicking a button is not enough. We have a word for that that's come into use in the past few years, slacktivism, right? That's not activism. So yeah, it's great. And I'm sure you, like me, have a million things in your Facebook. Click here and you'll save 10,000 lives. Click here and you'll give clean water to 1 million people. Like, really? You guys believe that? But it's an amazing tool, but the work has to be done offline. The work has to be done one by one, boots on the ground. And with Turning Green over all of these years, I think that's one of the reasons that we've had success. I can say that, I can own that we've been able to be successful, is that combination of online and offline. Remember, you guys, you live in the physical world, right? The issues that you need to address are probably in some way touching your 24/7 life. So you got to do it. You got to do it in your backyard. And that might not seem so glamorous or so impactful, but everyone has to take responsibility for their piece of the world. And I love what we've been able to achieve with Turning Green, is uniting these environmentalists, these environmental activists, these people interested in conscious lifestyle and conservation all around the world. So it's okay if there's not somebody right there that shares all of your beliefs, because you can find that. But the work has got to be done where you start.
Okay, thank you, Erin. So we have another question from Kate 3. How did you get funding to support your own money?
It's a great question. I think there's a very common misconception that anyone who is an activist, an environmentalist, leading a charity, is independently wealthy. That the only road is because they had a trust fund, or because they had wealthy family, or because they didn't have to work. I went to school on scholarship my whole life. Both of my parents have worked multiple jobs my entire life to give me the foundation that I had. I started when I was in school, when I was 13. So I didn't necessarily need to, I was working, I wasn't working full time. I worked all through high school, I worked all through college. But I didn't have that pressure of needing to pay to provide a roof over my head, to put dinner on the table. I had two very hardworking parents who did that for me and offered me a few years to get to start this with a little bit more freedom, with a little bit more flexibility. But we started reaching out to foundations for grants. I'd never written a grant in my life. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it looked like. But we decided, we said, well, it takes funds to make any effort. It takes, you need the funding to scale, you need the funding for impact. So grants and foundations, and then we started partnering also with corporations. Not really, really massive ones, but small and medium-sized enterprises that largely were based in the communities where we were based initially, and who believe in education, who believe in these same sorts of environmental tenets, but also we're the future consumer, right? We're the demographic that they want to hit ultimately. They might want to do good, but they also want to sell product. They also want to shift behavior and consumer choices in a certain direction. So if they can activate and reach a younger demographic, that's really effective for them. So we got support, and still do to this day, 11 years, from grants and foundations and from corporate partners. It's not easy, but it's definitely, I don't want to call it a necessary evil. You should feel no shame in writing a grant, in asking for money, in hosting fundraisers, because you're using that money for good. You're using that money to amplify what it is that you're doing.
Okay, Erin. So you're mentioning like getting the funding from the corporation, and then how if there's a conflict of interest, like because like they're giving you and your project the money, and then they want to have something to say in your project. Have you ever faced that, and how do you deal with that?
It's a very good question. So most of the companies, all of the companies, my team would want me to say this, all of the companies that we work with at Turning Green go through a very strict vetting process. We have all sorts of points that we will not sacrifice because we don't want them to have an influence. These companies are in the natural and organic industry. These are companies that are really, really driven, mission-driven companies. We triple bottom line companies that look at people and planet. Business. But I was really excited to see a large corporation do that. Now, it's different with me as an individual than with me representing or having them directly associated with my nonprofit, absolutely. But me as an individual, I've made the choice multiple times to work with these large corporations because business is an incredible tool for change that operates at a scale larger than nonprofits and a speed faster than government.
Thank you, Erin. Seems like we have questions from Sarawak.
Hi, Erin. So, we can feel that you're very passionate about the environment and the green movement. What about for people, okay, they want to do something, but they're not really sure what they want to do? Do you have any advice? Maybe you've met people who went through the same journey that, they discovered it, but what can you say about that?
I think that's very valid. It's overwhelming, right? Where do you start? Like you want to make a difference, but you don't know where. I really encourage people to mine their own life and their own community. It doesn't have to be something that comes out of the blue. Think about what in your life would you like to see done better? What in your community do you think isn't working, isn't sufficing? And see if any of those align. We all sort of wait for that moment, right? And then it arrives and it hits you. But I sort of do believe in that. I sort of do believe that it will come to you, when it's at the right time. But first, get involved. Get involved in other organizations. Get involved in local efforts. Find out the processes, right? It's very similar. All of the ways in which you go about making change. So if you, maybe before you know what your calling is or what your passion is, can support somebody else's, can support another organizations, can learn how it is that they're going from A to Z. If you get that down, it's like a recipe. You just can do it again when you discover what it is that you want to do. You might need a little bit of tweaking, but you'll have such a leg up just from that experience. So I think that I have had the privilege to work with a lot of different organizations all around the world, and you glean the best. And we also have this idea that my plight is not worse than your plight. My passion is not better than your passion. And so if you can learn to support someone else's, if you can see the world through their eyes, if you can have an impact at any level, good. And keep going. But really, it's the same when I think about it, it's a little different, like an individual and a corporation. But with a corporation, all these corporations go and they write these checks for $1 million, $5 million to solve a problem that's completely different from their mission or their practices. Okay, so they're doing some good. But wouldn't it be better if they went into their own supply chain, if they went into their own production practices, if they went into their own post-consumer, waste and fixed those issues? Because that's where they have real control. So what do you know? You are an expert in many things. You probably don't even realize that you're an expert in them because it seems so second nature to you that you're just going about your day every day. I wouldn't have a clue about the problems and the issues that are fundamental to your community. You are the only one that does. So you are the only one that can address them. So go through it. I don't know. Make a list. Go through your day to day. Go through from morning till night and think about the things that are pain points. That's the technical term, right? The pain points. And see if you can come up with a way to do it a little bit better.
And so we have one more question from online. It's from Love, who has worked in the environmental field and with youth empowerment. She asked, how can we lobby government to strongly support the green project?
It's a very, very good question. How can we lobby government to support green projects? It's hard because more so than people or corporations, there's a lot of special interest money. There are a lot of reasons that government wants to keep the status quo as is. So, first of all, we started lobbying government the first time that our organization went to Sacramento, which is the state capital of California, where we started. The first time I went, I wasn't even old enough to vote. I was 17 years old. Why should they listen to me, right? I didn't elect them. Didn't vote for them. Couldn't write them, a check. But they listened to my voice because it was different. It was raw. It was truthful. Maybe it seemed a little bit like some of their children, or like the future, where you're like why they're really in this. What I've learned is that there's a lot that can be done to push government in a better direction. There are a lot of bills that are constantly being introduced, a lot of good ones and a lot of bad ones. And so if we can work as citizen activists really to push that and to educate ourselves on what legislation needs to be passed at the local and at the state level, and that's really where the legislation is you're going to understand, or that is going to be, voted on regularly by people. Do you know who your elected representatives are? Have you ever been to their office? Have you ever called them up? Have you ever sent them an email? Guess what? You guys can start, and you can make a little ruckus and then see where it goes and push it. Vote. How can you push policy change? Put the people in office that you want to see. That's not partisan. That's not telling you who to vote for. Just vote. Vote with your values. But also, and I know this isn't exactly what you asked, but when you are voting, that doesn't only happen at the ballot box every 2 years or every 4 years. That happens every single day with your dollar, with your purchases. And where that money goes has a direct impact on policy as well.
Thank you, Erin. So one last question from our audience here in Jakarta. Do you have any question? It's okay to ask in Bahasa. I can try. Okay, maybe from this side.
Thank you. My name is Andita Dwi Seviani. You can call me Dita. I'm from Agricultural University, and now I'm joined GEHU Bogor, or Gerakan Hijau untuk Bogor. And in English, there is Green Movement for Bogor. Yeah, and in that project, we do in the residence. So people in that residence do some environmental movement, and it's running for years. And then for now, the people met Bank Sampah or West Bank, and then for the future plan, we want to build some compost installation, plastic treatment, something like that, and plant some crops. I want to know about your opinion about this. We get some fund from some organization, and then we just have to do something. I'm sorry. So, in your opinion, what we have to do first, is it composting installation or plastic treatment or plant crops, because we cannot do it together. So in your opinion, what we have to do first? That's
Yeah, amazing. Well, first of all, I'm very impressed. I'm very excited. You give me hope. Thank you. That is experiential education. That is what we need more of. That is doing in the real world, but then being able to show people what it is, how it works, and inspire them further. Gosh, what do you do first? I mean, I think that for me, food and growth and plants is a very strong place to start because people can understand it, right? That life cycle, that idea that what you put into the ground gets into the plants. They get that. What you put into your body from the plants affects your health, it affects your energy, it affects your waistline, affects X, Y, and Z. And then you can move on to show composting, right? That's post-life, and it's part of this whole cycle. But I think starting there is really strong. I think there's also so much around soil health, around air quality, around food access. I don't know if you're going to plant, edible foods, crops, or medicinal crops, or what, but there's such a multitude of benefits of all of this. I also just think that it's a value to the community. It's beautiful. It's exciting. It is something that literally, people can do with a seed. So we do all the time during Project Green Challenge. There's a challenge where people actually have to plant. They have to grow their own, you call it. I think that plastics is very, very important, but it's that same cycle. And when it's biological life cycle with nature, with plants, people understand it better. When it's a technical nutrient life cycle with plastic or other things in the waste stream, it's a little bit more complicated. So if you can introduce people to this idea of cradle to cradle, of seed, soil, growth, compost, back to dirt, that life cycle, and then plastic recycling, broken down into fibers or pellets, and then upcycled and back into, plastic that's not virgin. If they understand the life cycle first from a biological nutrient perspective, they will more easily understand it from a technical nutrient perspective. So that would be my my advice. But keep going. May your work be an inspiration in your community. I'm so excited. Keep me posted. Tell me how it goes. And keep on being the change you wish to see in the world.
Thank you, Erin. That is actually the last question for tonight's session. So before we end this session, I would like to ask Erin, do you have any closing remarks?
I'm inspired. I hope you guys can see it just in my voice, in my face. I love what I get to do. In a world with so much destruction and death and damage and degradation, it's very easy to become overwhelmed. But I have never had more hope because of the power and the proactivity and the creativity of our generation. So when you get down, when you're having a bad day, when something's happened in your community or our world that seems insurmountable, remember that the greatest natural resource we have is our youth, which in our case is ourselves. Invest in that, collaborate, build each other up, and know that there's at least one person a world away who always has your back, is always cheering you on, and believes in your ability to dream and to do.
That's a really inspiring session with you. So to sum up this discussion tonight, YSEALI, this is exactly what YSEALI is. We're gathering youth from Southeast Asia with the same interests, and then we talk. From our discussion, we will have something outcome from this, and we will do something like what Erin said, like nobody will do it if you don't do it. So for funding in YSEALI, we have what we call YSEALI a Seed for the Future grant competition. So every year we will have competition that give you grants for your project. So if you have any projects, just keep update it and post it with YSEALI, because we will have that competition, and if you win it, you can do your projects with our grants. And also, we're going to have this kind of discussion regularly, because this is how we want to engage with our over 80,000 members all over Southeast Asia. This is our first discussion, digital speakers with Erin. So we're going to have another discussion next week. It's about entrepreneurship with a very young entrepreneurs from America. We'll share the same spirit with you, youth in Southeast Asia, and we will have more discussion with this. So stay tuned with our social media. And then also come to At America if you're here in Jakarta area. And lastly, as usual in tradition in At America and also in YSEALI, we're going to take picture of Erin in our screen with a YSEALI logo. So we can brand this as our first ever digital speaker.
All right. Are we ready?
Thank you so much for everyone online who's joining this conversation. Thank you so much from all around ASEAN countries. So maybe I'll hold this and then Erin will appear in the screen.
Does everybody else want to get in too? Everybody gather around.
And then later we will take a picture with the audience as well, so we can share it with you, Erin. So thank you.
I want a picture with all of them.
In our other digital speakers list. So go back to At America, Tim.
Can we have another round of applause to our wonderful speakers? And as for our tradition, we would like to invite all the speakers to take a photo with At America logo. All right, so we're going to take a picture together. All right, so on the count of three, smile. 3, 2, 1. One more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. And now we'll take a picture on the other side.